Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Seth Bloom with New Orleans Big Easy Law Podcast, and David Gremion, who's here with me today. Say hi, David.
Hey, everybody.
So I just wanted to thank everyone who's joining us for our third podcast. We're still behind with some technological improvements and some editing abilities, but what we lack in technical abilities, hopefully, we'll make up with content, and it being an interesting podcast blog today. So I'm excited about that. So I thought we would talk about a little bit today. Today's going to be our automotive or our automobile episode. So don't get excited if you're like a gearhead or a NASCAR or a race fan, because we're not going to talk about, it's not going to be car talk. We're not going to be talking about any of those things, even though they're interesting, and I'm sure that would make a better show. And even when we go into that iTunes category for podcast, antique cars and gearhead stuff is a lot more popular than talking about lawyer shows. But we're doing our best here. We're doing our best. So I guess I wanted to talk about how probably a huge percentage of our practice revolves around an automobile, and kind of how the automobile opens people up to a lot of civil as well as criminal issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd start out by talking about a little bit about personal injury and specifically dealing with auto accidents. So one way people come to us at Bloom Legal for our law firm, for our advice, for our representation, is through car accidents, through automobiles. So automobiles are very dangerous things. You drive around on them. There's a lot of people that can barely see, can barely hear. Student drivers. I was out today right at the circle up there. There was a student driver in front of me, and he or she was a little bit aggressive on the brake pedal, so I moved away from that. So there's all sorts of, vulnerabilities out there. There's weather conditions. There's
people without licenses and insurance.
And that's a whole. We can spend a whole topic on a whole radio show on that, but that brings up a good point. If you're living in a city where there's a high percentage of people with no auto insurance and they hit you, then there's no one to claim any money against to help you with your injuries, your medical bills. So what you need to do is carry uninsured motorist coverage, which is not required by law.
No, but it's definitely something you should have
especially in Louisiana, especially in New Orleans. And in fact, if someone hurts you in an accident and you yourself don't have any insurance, then you don't have a right to a claim. So that's a big issue that's not in every state, but there's a no play, no pay rule there. But I know there's a lot of stuff we can talk about with personal injury and auto accidents, but uninsured motorist, and I think we're going to come back to this and talk. Uninsured motorist is one of the most important things. It's more expensive.
Absolutely.
And some people, even though the people have it, they go, yeah, I have full coverage, and they don't have uninsured motorist, which is what stands for, or they have but they're grossly underinsured.
Yeah.
So they have like a $25,000. I mean, I think for uninsured,
not going to cover much.
Not going to cover much. For uninsured motorists, I think you should absolutely have at least $100,000.
Yeah.
And depending on what your insurance broker advises, and your insurance agent and broker doesn't always advise that well. But I would probably get more than that if you have any sort of assets, and it's really protecting yourself against injury. Or I would, and if you need more than that, then you may want to look into an umbrella policy that covers uninsured motorists as well.
And nobody wants to pay for it because our insurance rates are already high enough. But that's part of the reason they are, is because there's a lot of people driving around without insurance and things like that. And it's why it's so important, because if you are hurt, you don't want that to come out of your pocket, especially if it was someone else's fault who did not have insurance.
And all of these automotive kind of topics all kind of bleed together, but just to stay on injury and auto accident and car accidents, because we want to represent people, and we do represent a lot of people in auto injury here in the greater New Orleans area and all over Louisiana. I've actually had I'm barred in Texas, so I've had some cases over there in the past, but mostly we're working in the greater New Orleans area. Is, what to do if you get into a car accident. You want to call the police. You want to preserve any witnesses that are there.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave the scene. If you're injured at all, you should go get checked out. If you think there's a question or you need to go in an ambulance, then tell them you need to go in an ambulance. If you're just feeling a little bruised and don't want to go to the ambulance, to the hospital, then go to an urgent care facility, go call your doctor, but get in and get checked out. That's really important because you never know what's going to start hurting later, and you don't know if you have any internal injuries. But we strongly suggest that people get checked out, and then contact a lawyer if you've been injured, if you have auto damage, collision damage, and your insurance company isn't paying for it, or you're not getting them to pay your medical bills. Call us sooner or later. We don't charge any fees as far as initial consultation, and you don't pay any attorney fees unless we get a settlement for you. But that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So I wasn't going to make this all about personal injury, but certainly auto accidents are a big part of our practice. And
big part of the practice, and it's very common. We're consistently ranked as a state as some of the worst drivers in the country. So there are a lot of accidents, as well as a lot of plants and other things around New Orleans where there's a lot of maybe 18-wheelers or bigger trucks that are driving around that may cause collisions and things like that. And some of those injuries can be more severe than your typical rear-ended car accident.
And David, that's a great point because being on the energy coast here in Louisiana and having oil refineries and tugboats and all sorts of different sort of port business going on here in the greater New Orleans area, we do have a lot of trucking accidents. And those have even a different level of specificity, and we do handle truck accidents here at Bloom Legal too. So if you have any questions about that, you can call us. But some of the other things is we do represent people on traffic tickets. So traffic tickets are clearly something that are connected to a car. And I guess we're traffic tickets, and we can always represent someone on traffic tickets, and it's clearly easier if we do it because we go to court for you. 90+% of the time, you never have to go to court, and so that's a good thing. We keep you at your job or doing, and we go in there and try to have the case dismissed or reduced down to a non-moving violation, so it doesn't go against your driving record at all.
It doesn't affect those insurance rates that we discussed earlier that are already high enough. So,
and the whole having to wander into New Orleans traffic court or Jefferson Parish traffic court and not know what to do or waste your whole morning. Let a professional do that. That's what we do, or use another lawyer in a different city. But we do that. And the thing about traffic tickets is traffic tickets a lot of the times are the reason that people get pulled over for other things. So you run a stop sign, like our client a few months ago runs a stop sign, gets pulled over, and then suddenly, they smell marijuana in the car, or you don't have a driver's license, or someone in the car has a warrant, and suddenly then they pull the person out of the car and then they find drugs in the car. So now this traffic ticket has bled into a drug arrest, a felony arrest, perhaps, maybe a misdemeanor arrest for marijuana. Or to give you one of the other busiest areas of our practice is DWIs. Maybe you ran a red light, they pull you over, and then suddenly you
didn't use your blinker, your lights out, or something like that. It gives them a reason to pull you over. They have probable cause when they smell alcohol or marijuana to search the car or to search you, which can lead to bigger charges.
And again, it could just be as simple as you having a suspended driver's license.
Or an unpaid traffic ticket.
An unpaid traffic ticket. If there's a warrant or the police officer decides that he can arrest you for that. Sometimes they'll send you home on a suspended driver's license or a traffic ticket warrant. But other times, they're supposed to bring people in, and that's kind of, how they monitor people and make sure people are paying. And certainly you don't want to end up in Orleans Parish Prison or in Jefferson Parish Prison over in Gretna. It's, these things are unproductive. These are things, get us fired from our jobs. They get our family upset with us. And, so there's a lot of things when dealing with an automobile that are super important, from getting injured in car accidents to getting pulled over for tickets or DWIs, getting stopped by, random DWI checks. And then just being pulled over, especially on the highway where they're looking for drug traffickers, stuff like that. So it's real easy to, and probable cause is a flexible thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, we see that all the time. I mean, just about every time they pull someone over, I mean, in fact, in this case we were talking about, and like many, many other cases that we've represented, they always quote unquote, David, smell marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, if there's a little bit of gram or two of marijuana in a sealed plastic bag or in a, some sort of a plastic container, deep in a bag in the back seat or deep in the console, the whole car doesn't probably reek like marijuana unless they've been smoking in it, but it's the predicate for them to go in there and say probable cause.
And there's no way for you to necessarily dispute that. I mean, there's some case law out there, but you can't. There's no body camera for what the officer smelled. So.
Right. At least on a body camera, which we certainly like them, at least makes sure they go through the steps and visualize.
Correct.
And, we can hear the sound of them being concerned about, marijuana smells or something like that. So, it creates a whole separate issues of constitutional laws about searching vehicles. And most of the time, that's where drug traffickers are stopped. I mean, unless you're dealing out of your house and people are reporting on you, most of the time it's, people are stopped and they they're sloppy, they smell drugs, they see drugs.
Especially we're talking about earlier with the port city and also I-10 coming through. It's a big trafficking area, so they're out there looking for it.
And maintaining your vehicle is something important to talk about too. You want to have 4 good tires on your car and your brakes working, but you also want to make sure your brake tag's up to date.
Yep.
You want to make sure your license plate's renewed. You want to make sure you don't have cracks in the windshield, too dark a tint, broken taillights, broken headlights.
You're using your blinker.
Something dangerous hanging from your car. I mean, any of those things gives a police officer probable cause to pull you over. And if they find a little marijuana or you've been drinking a little bit, and certainly we'd never advocate for anyone to drink and drive, but if you're drinking and driving and you have a taillight out, you're giving them permission to pull you over, even if you're driving perfectly.
Yep.
So, you just want to think about that. But I used to say, and I still say that, alcohol really fuels a huge thrust of our business because most people, whether it's batteries or bar fights or disturbing the peace or trespasses or assaults, domestic violence, those usually all happen, David, when people are drinking.
Yep.
But the next biggest component is really the automobile, people getting hurt in automobiles, people getting pulled over in automobiles. And, all of this stuff is kind of tied together. So I feel like I got a little boring today, David. I was just kind of going in there and
maybe we should have talked about more gearhead car things than the law.
I'm actually, I know a lot more about the law than cars. I've been to a few races in my day. I know we have that park out here in New Orleans East.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty cool thing. They had a pro race. It was an IndyCar race. See,
nice.
I know that. I grew up not too far from Daytona, so I know the difference between NASCAR, Indy, funny cars, Formula One, but stock cars. I mean, I've got the general down.
Yeah,
but
I think I need to brush up on it a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe we'll take a Bloom Legal trip to Talladega, then Indianapolis next year.
And we'll do another podcast from out there.
We'll do a podcast from out there. We'll get media credentials and stuff like that. But well, I just wanted to thank everyone for listening to us. I hope we talked about some good things about, some issues dealing with vehicles, keeping your vehicle in good shape, keeping it licensed, insured, watching out for traffic tickets, DWIs, and, anything else that would get you pulled over.
And taking care of your tickets when you receive them and not years later, because they're going to cost you a lot more money down the road. And you can also end up being arrested for them. So you definitely want to try and take care of them.
The worst thing you're going to have is find out that you had a speeding ticket you didn't pay from 5 years ago and then get arrested. So then you're going to get arrested, a new ticket, and then you have your old ticket, which I'm sure has a bunch of late fees on it and contempt fees on it. So you're going to get instead of handling it with a lawyer for, $300, $400, $500, now you've been arrested, you have 2 tickets, you've been humiliated, and now you're probably paying 2 to 3 times that.
Exactly.
So, well, give us a call if you ever need us, and hopefully this podcast will be interesting, and we're picking up more and more people listening to us, and we'll go from there. Any suggestions, give us a call at 504-599-9997, or email me at sjb@bloomlegal or david@bloomlegal, and we'd love to hear from you.
Be happy to talk to y'all.
So, David, say goodbye, and I'm going to say goodbye.
Adios, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.